Hello and welcome to This Time Africa. As you know, we're in the studios of Africa today, and This Time Africa showcases our African men, African partners, politicians, our emerging leaders, our culture, beauty, economics, money, much more in the dish. But the question always is, what's on this time? All right, in This Time Africa today, I have somebody from the country of Rwanda and I have United States. And what are we going to be talking about? Watch democracy grow. Watch democracy grow. And to have this conversation, I have with me Mary Henrietta Uwera, who is from Rwanda. She is the coordinator of Watch Democracy Grow. Mary is a community organizer with experience of refugee settlement. She also has a background in political science and public health. And Mary is here in the studios. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you, Dr. Matilda, for having me.
You are so welcome. And next to me, I have the executive advisor of Watch Democracy Grow in the person of Dr. Bland Lawrence, who of course comes from the USA. Dr. Bland Lawrence has a doctoral degree in humanities in consultancy. He has also been appointed, he has a presidential appointment from U.S. Department of Labor, where he served very diligently. And of course, he was also appointed Consular General for Cameroon. He has served as board members for many, and continues to serve for many very decent organizations. He was also a dean of the Paralegal Board of Education and Organization, and is recognized by the mayor and other people from the city of Rockville. I can go on and on, but please welcome to the show, Dr. Bland.
I thank you so much for having me this evening. I look forward to our conversation.
A very good conversation. Right. So we're going to talk about Watch Democracy Grow, and the first question in everybody's mind would be, what is democracy? Watch Democracy Grow. So the subject here is, what is democracy? What would you say is democracy? I know you have a wealth of experience, but let's see if we can break it down.
If I might, democracy means so many things to so many people. It's an ideology of what one perceives as being a democratic process. Now, the one thing I want to say up front is that democracy does not carry what most people are looking for, fairness. You won't find that in democracy. Democracy is another way of identifying the needs and aspirations of a people, irrespective of what country they come from. And that's carried primarily in their flag. There are 196 nations in the world, and others attempting to come into existence. And each of those flags symbolize what they interpret their democracy. Now, when you see a country that calls itself the Democratic Republic of whichever the country happens to be, it doesn't mean that it's a democracy. Oftentimes they're dictatorships. So there's a misnomer, a misinterpretation, a misunderstanding. What the flag should represent under democracy is the rights of the people to assimilate, to be free, to be a part of the equation as opposed to being excluded from the main process, that they too have an interest in this project. That's their homeland, where they originate from, where they end up. That should be the concept of democracy. It's far much more greater than that. One of the things that we miss so often is that democracy cannot flourish under communism, Marxism, any of the isms. Socialism, it just doesn't fare very well. But what goes hand in hand and second nature to democracy is capitalism. Capitalism provides opportunities for growth. That's entrepreneurship. That's for men and for women. It provides a hope for a better tomorrow.
Yes.
It provides ownership, that you are somebody, as opposed to being excluded as if you don't exist. This is a major problem. People have issues that need to be dealt with accordingly. And if we don't have democracy, we have little to fight for.
Exactly, because it's supposed to be a sphere of a collective decision making. Isn't that so, Mary? You want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. One principle that I usually like about democracy is the doctrine of opportunity for all. If you work hard, you realize what you're working for. If you really go out for what you want, so it defines the economy to flourish and the distribution of resources that we usually actually have as a nation. So democracy as a type of leadership or a government actually redraws the resources, restructures the whole structure of the community, and actually makes it flourish if people embrace it in its truly values. Sometimes people will pick just voting. That is one notion of democratic rights, but there are a lot. The intrinsic value of democracy is what actually we are looking for, as he's saying, because it is that which makes the community flourish.
Exactly. So so when people talk about democracy, they think of voting, like Mary said, but what the people, the decision making of the people that belong to that country. What are they looking for? They're looking for less corruption. They're looking for transparency. They're looking for inclusion. They're looking for economic opportunity. Yes, what would you say to that, Dr. Bland?
Again, depending on the nature and type of democratic front that we're talking about. In the Constitution of the United States, it says nowhere in the Constitution does it guarantee anybody the right to vote. The voting rights under the Constitution of the United States are what we call an affirmative vote. The same as we grant health care or education. The right to vote falls into the same category. And it doesn't say that at all in the Constitution of the United States. What other countries thought it meant was it should be put into the Constitution to guarantee everyone the right to vote. And it's worked for America. America is a very young country, but it's one of, if not the most powerful country in the world. A country must design programs to protect itself from outside intervention.
Yes, quite.
I can give you an example of let's say hypothetically that a nation or group invaded the United States, and 51% of the controlling vote in the House of Representatives and the Senate went to that invading group. I won't mention any parties, any names, because they'll come back and wonder what we're talking about. But we have one state under the Constitution that automatically breaks up into 5 separate states. And this one state is Texas. Instead of having just 2 senators, they would end up with what? 10 senators.
10, yeah.
Giving them the balance of power back again. So a nation, when its founding forces, when they put it together, they must build that Constitution to the extent where it protects the people and what the intent is of that nation in order to provide the very basic needs for all of its members. Remember what happened in Europe with the kings and queens and the aristocracy of the very wealthy and powerful European. The revolts came from the peasants, came from the poor classes who had nothing. They couldn't take it anymore. And what was the prevailing factor in creating a change in the European politics was necessity. Necessity is not a respecter of man's laws. No matter what law is written, necessity has no respect for man's laws.
Correct.
If you need to have fair housing, a decent living, be able to feed your family, raise your family, educate them accordingly.
Those
you
are
have
necessities.
Those are necessities. Clothing yourself, sheltering yourself. And when a government seeks to deny its people that, you have this adverse growth of this necessity that overpowers those who have material wealth. It then becomes useless of any stretch of the imagination.
Of course.
People are no longer interested in it.
Yes.
But in America, we've done something so unique with our monetary system. An example, we have the largest economic economy on the face of the earth, the United States. We have more than a $22 trillion GNP. That's a huge GNP. If you asked anybody how much money do we actually have in circulation, they're thinking that you have to have $21 or $22 trillion in circulation. We only have about $200 billion in circulation. That $200 billion creates $22 trillion. It's how that money turns over in a respective community.
Yeah.
In the black communities, the poor communities, it may be their resources 6 hours. But in other areas, in the white community, or other areas where they're very wealthy and powerful, doing well, that dollar turns over 60, 70, 80 times. So they're deriving the benefits of the deposits by poorer people, which are the masses. They are greater in number than are the very wealthy. Those 1%ers control more than 40% of all the wealth in America, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
How does 1% of the population control 40% of the wealth?
That's right.
And we're not talking about just distributing those resources to the poor. All I'm saying is that you have to be inclusive of your approach to being able to deal with the needs of those who are less fortunate than others. People who are born into immense wealth really don't know what it's like not to be able to pay a telephone bill and a light bill, a car note, car insurance, food bill. They have never had that threatened or taken away from them. The loss of it in poor neighborhoods with lower incomes, the middle incomes, they lose 2 paychecks, they're on the impoverished line.
So do you think that Africa has a challenge, so to say, about upholding democracy and the democratic values?
Oh, absolutely. And if I might, in Africa in particular, here you have 55 nations. They live on the richest continent on the entire planet Earth. And why should they be as impoverished as they are? They're in a condition of malfeasance. We know it's caused by colonialism, primarily, but also African leadership. And the most debilitating entity that leads to poverty and the have-nots and the separation of the classes of the rich and the poor in Africa, some may disagree, but I know this to be a fact, is tribalism. One tribe takes power, and if you don't belong in that tribe, you're not going to be hired necessarily in terms of employment or given equal opportunities to do a number of different things. Exclusion. That country would be more powerful if it was inclusionary of all people, irrespective of the tribe they come from, or what visitors who've migrated to those countries.
Yes.
That would change almost overnight, and what they need to build, if I might, they have to build a reciprocatorial relationship between Africa and other countries and people who want to work directly with them, and particularly African Americans in this country.
I think that's happening now, right, Mary?
Yeah. With the year of return, a few African Americans are now actually going back to Africa, doing some business, collaborating with African communities. But again, it's the other thing of what he's saying. How many are going to really go down to improve the quality of life of the ordinary man? Again, you come and you get sunk into elite, what I call elite democracy, group of the people who are into power. So they are those ones who are going to have that opportunity also as well.
That's right. But you know what? I have to hold your thoughts because somebody said to me that democracy distracts us from a sad reality, which is the harsh corruption of dictatorship of our economy. And that's where we'll hold it right back. We'll be right back. I'm in the studio with Dr. Bland and Mary Uwera. We'll be right back.
your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Africa Today. We are live every Sunday at 3 p.m. Our shows are 3 p.m. Sunday Guests with Elaine Pierre. 4 p.m. This Time Africa with San Natilda Banga. 5 p.m. Transformation Point with Dr. Natalie Kamsudomo. 5:30 Cyber Connect with Jean Bosco Fogham. You can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Africa Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.africtoday.com. Africa Today, the best of digital TV.
Welcome back to the show. This is This Time Africa, and I'm in the studios with Dr. Lawrence Bland and Mary Henrietta Uwera, who is here representing Watch Democracy Grow. Welcome again to the show. So, Henrietta, can you just tell us, so how long has Watch Democracy Grow been, when was it birthed? And I see you are having an annual conference. Let's talk a little bit about that. So how long has it been in existence?
Okay, Watch Democracy Grow was started in 2016.
Okay.
If you remember, I would say this is one gift we would say we got from former President Obama when he was in Kenya at the African Union Summit. Okay. He said that the future and the strength of Africa actually depends on its people and the young generation.
Yes.
So we are formed actually in 2016. We had the first conference in 2016, 2017. This is actually our third conference.
Okay.
So we just started, but we are moving vibrantly.
That's very good. So take us through the journey of how your conferences are. What happens? What kind of topics? What are the people? What happens? Because I want us to energize the viewers and the listeners so that they can see a reason why they should be there.
Okay. We usually, the way we do these conferences, first of all, they are for education purposes. Remember you said if we are going to grow democracy, we have to root it in the community.
Yes.
So we have usually like speakers. People come and speak about democracy. We know democracy cannot just exist on air. We have issues that really promote it, which is the ingredient you are talking about. And we have seen that almost 60% of African youth is not into that kind of chain, or they are uprooted, or they are not even employed. So in tapping that population, we tackle issues like unemployment for youth.
Okay.
Remember, all the uprisings that we see on the continent come from that demographic. So how do we really engage that energy?
60% of them actually. Yeah.
So how do we really engage that kind of demographic in that they don't become apprehensive to the ongoing setup, but at the same time see future for tomorrow, or see that they can be part of democratization process. Hey, so it is like we get speakers from different countries, from Ministry of Youth, here in US.
State Department is going to be there as well.
Actually, they are the ones who support, remember the Young African Leader Initiative Program? They have somebody who's in charge of youth there. So how do we engage that kind of political will to help Africa, especially that currently we have a very positive US foreign policy towards Africa. I mean, they are willing to help. How do we tap that energy? How do we own it so that we see the progress of democracy?
And I see some of the topics here that are going to be covered. Economic development in Africa. We're going to have, of course, the youth and the women development, public health, which is public wellness, peace building, which is my forte, then building racial equity, which is, Dr. Bland, and I'm so glad that you were here. Building racial equity does not just depend on the color of the skin, but even the boundaries from which we all come from. You are from the US and we are from Africa. How do you think we're going to encompass that topic so that when the people who are going to be there listening to us speak, they live there with a mindset of equity?
I could not be more pleased that you raised that as an issue. Could not. Remember, we have a division of inter-racism amongst ourselves.
Yes.
All throughout Africa, all throughout the black community. We're light-skinned, dark-skinned, brown-skinned, red-skinned, orange, whatever the color might be, we come in. You don't have to be just black to be black today. We are representative of so many different colors of nation.
Yes.
It's not being angry because one looks a little different than the other. It doesn't make one better than the other. And I've spoken about it so many times. And it makes me angry that we try to fault someone's pigment of the skin based on what God gave them. And I always say that flowers come in multiple colors. The oceans, everything that you can think of comes in multiple colors. So when somebody says God is colorblind and it should only be this, that's the most ridiculous thing I can possibly imagine. It's the most divisive thing that people use against one another.
I want to think so because democracy really supports all forms of faith, all forms of secularity, and so it's a conflict to say that. It is really a conflict to say that. So the goal, Mary, for that conference is going to be what?
Okay, the goal, number one goal is how do we really reach our people? I mean diaspora. Remember, we live here, but by the end of the day we have families there.
Yes.
So we have those ones who are living here. How do we become productive citizens? How do we really engage? And those ones who are back home, how do we also revitalize that voice also, so that people tend to own it? So that is the number one goal. Second goal is how do we let people engage, like what we're having discussions here. These are discussions which are aimed at educating people on this concept. To me, I think the number one reason why democracy integration does not take root, it's a lack of knowing what the concept itself is. So the more education we make, the more civic engagement we get in the communities, the more it will be, and the more it will be friendly. Remember, on the continent, there is always a confusion between imperialism and the new foreign concepts. For us at Watch Democracy Grow, we base it on African history, our cultures, and see what would suit us.
And it's very important, as you said, to base it on African history, because I know that a lot of people who went to school in Africa, most of our historical background was something totally different. And so Watch Democracy Grow, in the very sense of the word, helps to keep the awareness of not only the democracy, but what it all entails. Who you are, where you come from, where you are heading, and what are the things that you should bear in mind? What are the ingredients that you should bear in mind?
If we can keep this foremost in front of us, that we have more likes than we have differences and dislikes.
Yes.
Every human being, I think you'll enjoy this, but every human being has 9 external openings in the body. and 9 tissue layers of skin. We all eat food in order to survive. We all breathe the same air. We all have 2 arms and 2 legs. We all have the same things, so we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
It's philosophies and foolish history that divide us from other humans. We're the most destructive entity on the entire planet Earth. Humans are the only ones trying to genocide humans. No other species wants to genocide itself, except humans. If we can deal with that, and this is what democracy means to grow.
Yes.
Teaching that we have more alikes than we have differences. We all want decent housing. We all want to have a very strong family. We all want to support our governments. And these are not people who are trying to tear the government apart. They want to build the government for what it represents collectively.
Yes.
And doing it as one. And this is a reality. We're all humans.
We're all humans, and that's why I really like the theme, an integrative approach towards building a democratic and economically progressing continent. Mary, please tell us again about that theme. Why is that? It's so much of a catchphrase, but why did it have to linger around that topic? And also, where is this conference going to be at? And please invite the people, how they can reach you, your website, your telephone and all.
Okay, so we have 2 locations. We have Maryland at Burtonsville Recreation Center. That will be 19th to 20th from 12 to 6 p.m. Then we have
You're talking about October, right?
October, yes.
Okay.
And then we have George Washington University. That will be 21st from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So the theme, now I will go to the theme.
Yes.
Remember, we are talking of growing democracy. Actually, the name itself resonates from the notion of evaluate how democracy is taking root. So when you are evaluating, you are watching it growing.
Of course. Yeah.
So why do we say we have to take an integrative approach? Remember, democracy, as I said, it can't exist just in the air. We have the culture which is going to influence it. We have tribalism which is going to influence it, which actually I think on the continent is the big thing.
Yes.
We have the military rule on the continent, which is going to influence it because they have their own training different from democratic training. How do we teach, or how do we reach out to say, hey, this concept is there actually to help you? Because if people are going to own it and they are going to define their destiny, all you need is just to organize them. It's simply they are helping you. Don't see it as a threat, but see it as a concept which is going actually to help the leaders. To me, I think they should be the ones to embrace it than actually the citizens.
The citizens need to embrace it.
Yes,
that's how you and I, in the monitoring and evaluation of Watch Democracy Grow. This is where we wrap it up for today. We will be right back some other day. But hey, watch this. It's going to happen on October 19th to 21st.
Yes.
And it's going to be right here in Washington, D.C. and in Maryland. Watch Democracy Grow. Please go online and you can contact them there. You can see. It's been such a wonderful time having you both together. The time is so short, but I guess we'll come back. You know how to reach us on Sundays at 4 p.m. Go to africtoday.com. You can see us there. You can go to Amazon if you have your Fire Stick. You can also watch us on Twitter and YouTube. It's been a wonderful evening. Watch Democracy Grow. This is your host, Sia Matilda Banga. I'll see you next time.